Did you know a honeybee's entire life is guided by instinct, teamwork, and incredible intelligence? They even have built-in GPS. Today, I'm joined by local beekeeper Jessica Steller of Steller Apiaries to explore the amazing world inside the hive. Jessica, tell me how this all started for you. What got you into bees?
So my husband was in the Army, and he was stationed in Korea, and he found kind of an interest and appreciation for like fermented and brewed things just when he was in Korea. So when he got home from the Army, that kind of sparked a little bit of interest into like home brewing. So he did some beer, he did some wine, and then he discovered mead, which mead is a honey wine. You use the honey in place of grapes, and it tends to have a much sweeter and tend to be a more robust and even a higher alcohol content than wine. So obviously that was a very piqued his interest.
Yeah.
And then he was really interested in, well, if I kept my own bees, I might be able to circumvent needing to buy local honey. A lot of people get into beekeeping or mead making the other way around. People will keep bees and then they'll kind of find this need to find something to do with that excess honey, and so they'll get into mead making, and we were kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah, you backed into it the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then as soon as we got into beekeeping, we were fascinated by the entire social structure of it, but then we were met with losses. Our first 3 years, we lost 100% of our bees, and that really kind of not only tugged at our heartstrings, but really made us step back and think this isn't sustainable. So what is it about this that isn't working for us or isn't working for the bee? And that led us down a 15-year rabbit hole of really getting into the biodynamics, the natural life cycle, the biology of the honeybee, and really taking a step back from honey production, pollination contracts, and what we tend to really understand on the mass production or the manipulation aspect of beekeeping. And so we really wanted to focus on population and actual viability of the honeybee. We started seeking out popular hive styles that were, popularized or more sustainable in other countries. So what we mainly use now is what has been derived from a Kenyan top bar hive, so African beekeeping styles. We also use what's known as a ware hive, and so that's European hive styles. If there's more than one way to do a lot of things, there's probably more than one way to keep bees as well.
Yeah.
And so we have found a really niche and sustainable aspect to our beekeeping that we've really enjoyed. We were out in Whitmore Lakes. We were near Ann Arbor, and we really enjoyed that aspect, that climate and everything, but then we really understood that we needed the land. We needed more capacity for our actual bees, so that brought us back out here to Jackson. My husband's from Vandercook Lake originally, and we just kind of hit the ground running with keeping our bees. So now we manage about 35 hives on the 8 acres. We do a lot of education and outreach. We restarted the beekeeping program at the Dahlem Center back in 2010. So that has been running for a solid 15 years now.
Wow.
Just a couple of years ago, I worked with the Fair Board as well as Jackson County Farm Bureau so that we could actually enter in and add honey and beekeeping to our fair judging, so that we're adding in more local commodities and local things that we're actually putting into our Jackson County Fair every year.
Yeah, and to keep the honeybees alive, right? Because
absolutely.
That's a genuine concern.
Yeah. I educate a lot of kids. Another thing that I do with Jackson County Farm Bureau is this thing called Project Red, which is a rural education day. It takes place at the county fairgrounds. Every Jackson County third grader comes in and learns about wind pollination, honeybee pollination, other aspects of agriculture, goats, horses, pigs, sheep, and things like that. It's a really hands-on experience for kids to get to understand that other aspect of rural education and agricultural development. It's a very small part of the actual keeping of the bees, but what I wanted to get out of it is what really kind of shaped what I put into it. Educating our youth is such a huge passion
they are
of mine.
Our future.
They are literally.
Yes, I love that.
And the number of hugs and thank you cards I get recognized in the store. People are like, "You're that bee lady," and I'm like, "I am that bee lady," and I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So as far as time-wise, the keeping of the bees and the outreach, what percentage of that takes up your time?
I like to say that I actually spend a lot of time thinking about my bees and not necessarily as much time putting the physical hands-on management of them.
Yeah.
And it's also cyclical and seasonal. Right now I'm definitely in the more busy aspect of my beekeeping season. It's usually mid-May to end of June. So one colony of my bees, if they're healthy and viable, will tend to split and become two. And so I will have a lot of that activity in my apiary, which is what, the term for where you house your honeybee colonies. So I'll have a pretty active apiary, at the end of April, all the way through May, and then a little bit into this time in June. And another part that I try to maintain with my actual honeybees is a really symbiotic relationship. So I try not to take more honey than they physically need to get through their season, to get through their year, when we ultimately have that dearth that honeybees have where we don't have pollen and nectar available. So my bees make it through their entire winter with their honey stores, and then I harvest honey in the springtime, and then I get ready for their swarm season, and then I kind of get my garden ready. I do my land management and things like that, where I'm working with my trees, my fruit bushes, my fruits, vegetables, herbs, and things like that in our garden.
Working with the cycles of the earth too, in harmony with that, I think is important. What do bees do in the winter?
It's a little bit of a kind of a folklore that they hibernate all the way. They don't do like bears where you think they just like go in their cave and they just literally fall asleep for that entire time. But what they do is they will gather the pollen and nectar all spring, summer, and fall, so that they have a really heavy, protein-rich pollen source in their honey to actually help them survive the wintertime. So ultimately, they store that pollen and nectar as their honey for the entire wintertime, and then they will slow their bodies down so that they actually don't need to expel as much energy and use as much caloric intake. So they will kind of go into like a sloth pace during the entire winter, but they still manage to heat the queen honeybee in the center of their entire cluster, and they will keep it on average around 93 degrees inside of the hive the entire time of the season. During the winter time. So they really just slow down all of their activity, but they're still busy doing what they need to do to kind of maintain their overall structure in the hive. Honeybees will die during that time, and they will fall to the bottom of the hive, and they have a lot of cleansing practices, so they will end up removing those bees and doing what are known as funerary runs or cleansing runs, where they will actually leave the hive to like go clean up or to go remove debris or to go to the bathroom and things like that. So they have a very incredible, innate, like sanitary, social, symbiotic structure within the hive.
Yeah, I think what you said, the key word is symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
It all has to be in balance, and it was meant to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think of it as like when people own dogs as pets and they try to make the dog fit this mold of what they want the dog to be and act like a human, and you have to let dogs be dogs.
Yeah, or like this dog was not made for agility training or things like that, so
or like bark collars, like they're supposed to bark, that's how they talk.
That's how they talk. Yeah, exactly. I'm over here saying everything I want to say. Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a lot of respect and a lot of understanding that comes with being a beekeeper in general, but comes with being a good beekeeper. It takes a lot of effort and energy to do what you know is right for the bees, and not just what ends up being profitable or what ends up being easy or what ends up being just, good and whole for me at the bottom dollar. I was just out at U of M at the beginning of the month at their botanical garden, giving a course there on sustainable and alternative beekeeping. Get the good word out there.
Spread the light. Yes, I love that. And it all will come back to you.
Absolutely. And then we have likewise felt that it's been really important for us to put that into the community. A lot of people will talk about local honey, being really good for allergies. And local honey is good for allergies because you are taking in trace amounts of those pollens that actually would give you those histamine reactions.
As opposed to like having something from California.
From the store. And then typically the honeys that are from the store are also pasteurized, where you end up sterilizing out a lot of those good and beneficial enzymes, pollens, and proteins and things like that, just obviously to make the honey as safe as it possibly can be. But there isn't anything unsafe about raw honey directly from a beekeeper. They say that honey is one of the most complete foods, meaning that you could actually live off of it. It has so many enzymes and nutrients and things in it that makes it an incredibly viable and healthy source. And then it does absolutely help with seasonal allergies. And
I take it for acid reflux. And it helps me with that too.
That's amazing.
My
husband, again, with all of his woodworking and his genius and his craft, took a couple of late nights and just built me extra hives just to physically have a place to keep all of the bees.
I love that some of the wood was sourced from storm damage. I mean, you're even using trees that have already fallen.
One thing I love about the bees is that I mean, I could jinx myself, but they tend to be really docile. We don't use like a 4-sided frame, so we don't do any type of stamp foundation. So the honeybees have to create all of their cell sizes themselves. So they do what's called festooning, where they actually like will hang on each other based on their like head, abdomen, and thorax shape and the length of their legs. They will like cling together in different configurations to be able to create the actual shape, and then all of a sudden they will just start to have their beeswax cells just like appear out of their mass, the sphere, the ball of bees. It's so incredible to get to see. And then this one has some honey, looks like it has more brood on it, so you actually get to see a little bit of where the queen bee is actually laying the baby bees, or the brood chamber.
Cool.
So this hive, being relatively new, is only filled up about halfway. So like right here in my center where it's like a little bit more yellow, that's where the bees have walked over it, and this is where my queen lays her cells. So these are baby bees gestating in here.
Hi, babies.
And then these are like worker bees that will be tending to them. These are ones that have hatched out, and eventually she'll make her way back over these combs and she'll lay another egg in there, and the whole process will start over again. And the whole life cycle of the worker bees is just going through different phases of production and responsibility and things for them to actually manage all of the different like chores essentially inside of the hive. These worker bees will only live about 30 or 40 days, but my queen honeybee, she could live up to 5 years. If you look closely, like this cell right here, see how it's like protruding out? They're actually getting ready to cap it over. So this is a gestating larvae that's getting ready to grow and be capped over, and then a whole bee will emerge out of there. Whereas if you look right here, this one is a bee that is getting ready to emerge, and they're eating the almost like paper cell over the front of that, similar to how like a butterfly has to break out of their cocoon. They have to be strong enough to physically rupture out of the cell in order to survive. The worker bees will like walk over and will check on them, but they can't physically get them out of the hive for themselves. They still have to struggle to get through it. And then up here in the very top of these, where like it's really dark, that's actually pure pollen. That's pure like protein food source, so that this brood has the food readily available to them.
It's like a house. There's different rooms for different purposes.
Yep.
And everybody has a job.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
And then the queen honeybee, like she emits this pheromone throughout the hive, and it is just this like cohesive smell that basically tells the bees that like everything's copacetic, everything's like working as it should. And then they will actually use that to gauge like how fertile she is, how close they are to needing to swarm, how full the hive is, and things. Like she will have different stressors or different factors or indicators that will change her smell, that will communicate with the honeybees just as readily as like us talking.
There are so many different ways to communicate, not just us as humans with each other, but animals and plants.
Yeah.
Other than just using human language.
Yeah.
I feel like the human language is so limiting when the whole earth can communicate with each other.
Right, absolutely. Trees can communicate with each other and literally give water and resources and things. This one will be full all the way to the very back of my hive. So now hopefully their comb is nice and straight and I don't make them too mad. And it comes with the territory. Like being a beekeeper, I'm definitely gonna get stung. I love not getting stung, you know, like in the face and stuff. So like this hive has actual capped honey at the top of it, and then this is a brood chamber as well. So we've got brood on here, and then some of these stick out a little bit further. Those are drone bees. Those are actual boy bees, which they wouldn't mate with the queen in this hive, but they mate with queens in other hives. So that's another kind of viability and symbiotic thing that you want to have in your hives, is being able to potentially have suitors for those queens, as it were. And actually this is a really good visual, because this is like a beautiful amount of honeycomb and then a beautiful amount of bees there. Their compound eye on their head is the reason that they will like round over all of these combs and not actually attach them all the way down to the sides or all the way onto the bottom. And that's just this like evolutionary genius thing that they know. Nobody had to tell them that.
I have seen things like no mow May and leaving dandelions in yards, even though people think they look like weeds. I love dandelions.
Yeah.
But what are some things that people can do just in their daily lives and at home to help the bee population?
Those are absolutely some of the greatest ways. First and foremost, find a local beekeeper, whether that's just doing a local internet search, whether you're driving around, whether you're checking social media and finding that some local people are posting. Even your local municipality might have a couple of outlets. And then just try and buy and support as local as you can. You can plant a small flower garden for honeybees. It's often a misconception that you should put out like the hummingbird nectar or the actual sugar water for bees. Just plain water is amazing for bees. If you have bird baths, if you have any standing water, being sure that there might be enough twigs or stones or pebbles in them so that bees don't drown. Local water features are an amazing benefit to bees. We do need to remember that bumblebees and other native pollinators play a really special part in everything that we have around here as well.
What are some other pollinators that people might not even realize? Like I know butterflies.
Yep, locally, so butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, moths, other flies. Pretty good amount of wildflowers that we do every year. We have 2 gardens that we do right out at the roadway as well. There's a lot of benefits to, eliminating your need to mow your lawn as frequently because you have things like clover or you have low growing things like thyme or ground covers or things like that. And then replacing sections of your lawn with wildflowers or things like that is a wonderful way to add a huge ecosystem to the entirety of your property, no matter how big or small. From the outside, it's actually our address placard. But from the inside, you can open it up and it is a functional beehive. So one of the more interesting things about it is obviously you can see like the entire variation of how the comb is constructed, but then you get into points where like this is old comb that used to hold brood, but now it holds honey. You can see old lines where their colony had existed and where they have since grown or like extrapolated out the comb. So I always find it fascinating to see how they would entirely be honeybees outside of me saying, hey, be honeybees inside this beehive. There's so many aspects of it that are frankly hypnotizing.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. We do have like a reverence for the honeybees, that we find them really fascinating, and they are not just a commodity to be had.
I can tell.
There's much more to them. I mean, I love getting to again educate like the youth on things like every 3rd bite of food is partly responsible because of the honeybee, to get kids to see that things like the almond is like solely pollinated by the honeybee, or for us to even have chocolate. The cacao gourd is something that gets pollinated by bees, so that's
coffee too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really fascinating ability to get to like present people with something as cool as the honeybee, and then actually get them to kind of like factually track back all the steps or how interconnected they really are to us and to everything that we do and we appreciate. So let alone the concept of like their brain or their central nervous system being smaller than a sesame seed, and they can recognize where their hive is placed, and from there they can come out and like geographically map not only every direction but also physical and like very precise directions to be able to communicate to other honeybees where there is food effectively and efficiently close by. Like that's incredible. So they have like
internal GPS.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what I describe it as. Like they will come out of their hive and they will like do a little like calibrating flight, and then they will be able to just take off in any direction.
Wow. Do you find that, especially when you're educating kids, are they afraid of the bees at first, but the more they learn about how cool they are, they kind of calm down?
Absolutely. The biggest enlightenment to kids, where when they think of stinging insects, they think their purpose is to be a stinging insect. So for them to learn that bumblebees and honeybees that are fuzzy actually have this static electric charge on their backs that help them gather the pollen and go from plant to plant, and getting kids to understand that aspect about the fuzzy insect then takes away this whole fear or preconceived notion that this is the angry, mean, stinging insect. I'm like, I wish I was as cool as a bee.
I know, that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
Even though there's like 30,000 of you, whatever.
They're way cooler than humans.
This is actually where a majority of our hives are at.
Okay, I can see the bees flying around there.
So that obviously makes it more difficult to I can't spray for any weeds.
I know, and you don't want to disturb anything.
Yep.
So
these are our chickens. They sometimes free range, but ever since they cleared the land over there, we've had a lot more hawks. So they have spent a lot more time chilling in there. These are our two roosters, Lilo and Stitch. They're really the only ones that have name are the roosters, ironically. That was my whole goal when we got into chickens. I was like, I want the little rainbow basket of eggs.
Is there a difference in the eggs and the way they taste or anything? Or
there isn't between the like the brown and white or the blue or anything, but I'm a firm believer that there is a definite difference in what you get in store-bought eggs versus farm fresh eggs.
I've got to get a close-up of the of the farm stand, because just anybody can come here, right?
Yes. Yep. We'll have some people that will stop by and will come right up to the door. They will sort of blow by the farm stand as a whole, even though they know that's where they can get their things. And that's where we even have our sign, "Get Your Things." Our daughter actually drew kind of a vision for our farm stand probably about 10 years ago when she was about 5 years old, and she had written on it, "Get Your Things." And so that was sort of, we had to always continue that theme with it. But we've always enjoyed that people do seek out the local aspect of things. So people come finding our local honey, our local eggs. We raise chickens as well. A lot of the woodworking that we do is sustainably harvested from local tree companies as well. So everything that we try to do right here in Jackson County comes from Jackson County, goes right back into Jackson County, and benefits, hopefully all of us in the neighborhood.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Jessica and pick up some delicious local honey or eggs, visit Stellar Apiaries on Facebook. We'll see you next time on I Didn't Know That, Learning Out Loud with me, Ashley Warden.